Bobby, thank you for joining us.
Not at all. It's a great pleasure.
Now, you've played with and against some of the greatest names in football history, so you're ideally placed to choose this 11. How difficult a process was it?
It was difficult, and I had to leave out some really great players, but in other ways it was quite easy. You know, there are certain players that have made such a mark on you when you're a football person that you can't possibly exclude them. And I think that all the players that I've selected, you know, are in that category. They just had to be picked. They were just so good at their position, you know, that they were unbeatable. I have a big difficulty. In choosing an 11 because most of these players that we're going to talk about are my pals, and I don't want anyone to be offended that I've left him out. So I've had a really difficult job finding the 11 best players, and I've come up with 12. And they'll have to go in rotation onto the substitutes bench, I'm afraid.
In keeping with modern habits. But, OK, well, let's take a look down at the team sheet, starting with the last line of defence, your goalkeeper.
Well, my goalkeeper is Gordon Banks. I know he's English, and I don't want anybody to think, you know, that I'm going to have a predominantly English team here. But generally speaking, I think everybody, certainly around about 1970, unquestionably thought that Gordon Banks was the best goalkeeper in the world. What I loved about Gordon Banks was that he didn't show how good he was. He wasn't a dramatic goalkeeper. He didn't make things look more difficult than they were. In fact, he was the opposite. He made really difficult things look absolutely simple. No question, Gordon Banks was the best goalkeeper, the most difficult goalkeeper I thought any forward would ever have to face.
And certainly Pelé would testify to that, because in the game against Brazil in 1970 at the World Cup, he made what many describe as the greatest save ever made.
It's in legend now, isn't it, that, you know, that save. And I played in that match, and when he saved it, I could not believe it. And when Pelé headed the ball into the bottom corner, he literally flicked it with his little finger over the bar. It was just sensational.
Carlos Alberto, who's moving comfortably downfield towards the halfway line. Long ball downfield to try and find Jairzinho. He does find Jairzinho, and Giro's going hard round right, but across the area, chance for Brazil, and it's not there. What a magnificent save by Gordon Banks. A superb piece of running by Jairzinho. Went down the right, crossed the ball, and there was Pelé coming in.
Let's move on to the outfield players. We'll talk about formations and numbers a bit later, but for argument's sake, number 2, Carlos Alberto, the Brazilian captain who played in that same match.
Absolutely, and what was great about Carlos Alberto was he was a very good defensive player, but he did lend himself to attack as well, you know, and he had terrific distribution qualities, you know, the inside, outside of the foot, but he wanted to go forward as well. And he used to supplement the forwards, and he would overlap and scored his fair share of goals.
Rivellino down the line now to number 7, changing flanks. That's Jairzinho. Jairzinho cutting on the inside. A lovely touch ball to Pelé. He's got support on the right. That's Alberto. Alberto with a chance. He fires.
And next up, your captain in the 1966 World Cup final, Bobby Moore.
Yes, I picked Bobby Moore. I knew him better than probably anyone, and he was a terrific captain. He wasn't great in the air, and he wasn't fast, but his brain made up for everything. His instinct to find out where trouble was happening, and he would nip it in the bud with a tackle, a timely interception. Any time the ball was knocked into the 18-yard box, whenever we used to play with him, you know, all I ever have is pictures of him running out with the ball. You know, he'd collect it, he'd chest it down, he'd on his thigh, and he would know exactly who was around him. He hardly ever got tackled. He knew exactly what was happening, and he had this great awareness of what was on around him, and found lots and lots of time to do things right. He like I say, he was not a tall person, but reader of the game and inspiration, second to none.
Lower infield to Fictel. Fictel downfield to number 12, that's Overhout. He's the man that's got to be curved as he plays the ball infield to Muller. And lovely play by Bobby Moore, reading it so perfectly, so beautifully. Moore on this near side of the field, a long ball across. It's carrying in the air. It's too deep for anybody. Sailor coming forward on the far side of the field, plays the ball inside the back. Moore again doing the tidying, but he's going to be pretty quick, and he forces the error coming in from Libuda on the German right, and the ball...
So Bobby Moore and Carlos Alberto, who else in your defence?
Well, I've picked alongside Bobby Moore Franz Beckenbauer. They're very similar type of players, although Franz Beckenbauer did like to go forward a lot more, and he was also for a great period of time. And I think probably his best position was a midfield player. But I'm inundated with midfield players, so I've brought Franz Beckenbauer to the position that he actually finished playing in, which was as a central defender. He had all the qualities, awareness, read the game brilliantly, you know, and there again, that arrogance when he got the ball, he sort of, without saying it, was almost saying, don't come near me, you know, you're wasting your time. Marvellous player.
Haller now. Haller back to Beckenbauer. Beckenbauer coming in, trying a shot again, and there's Yashin again, and he can't do anything about it. It's a goal! I was just singing the praises of Yashin, and perhaps that was a fatal thing to do in any commentary, but certainly no goalkeeper on earth could have saved that magnificent...
I have to find a place for Duncan Edwards. Duncan Edwards played with me at Manchester United, and he died very young in the Munich air crash. But he was unquestionably going to be the greatest player that England had ever known. He was definitely, he was so head and shoulders above anything at the time. I always tell the story that he had great, fantastic right foot, left foot, short passing, long passing, delicate control, great in the air, had goals in. He was the best overall player probably that I've ever seen. He was breathtaking, strong, and he had an aura of invincibility. He could play in any position, and he could win a game for you. He would kick the ball off the line, and he would head the ball in from a corner at the other end. He just wanted to play. He had a great thirst and enthusiasm for the game, Duncan. Great tragedy that he wasn't seen by more people.
Brings it upfield, puts it inside to Fernie. Fernie gets there along with Edwards. Edwards takes the ball from him, coming through in his own. Having a shot, there's a goal for England! A wonderful goal! And Duncan Edwards jumps high in the air. And he scored that magnificent goal from about 25 yards.
OK, then let's move into the midfield. And the first selection here, Johan Cruyff.
He was another one with a great brain and great ability. One of those players that you actually had to keep your eye on him all the time, because he never actually did exactly what you were expecting him to do. He was a breathtaking player to watch. He could set up chances, he could score, good in the air. Always found space and time, and also a very great leader. He was captain of the Dutch team at Ajax, and he was a first class leader.
And it's a bit of the present-day Holland as Van der Kerkhoff takes it up. Cruyff in the middle. Van der Kerkhoff looking for Cruyff. Oh, safe on the line, in the net.
OK, moving into the centre of midfield.
Well, I've got what a midfield I've got. My next player is Alfredo Di Stefano. Was an Argentinian. He went to Colombia, got citizenship there, then eventually went to Spain, got Spanish citizenship. And in Buenos Aires, whenever I go, they talk about Alfredo Di Stefano as the little arrow, because he was so fast. And I only ever saw him, the first time I saw him play was in Madrid, when Manchester United played them in the European Cup in 1958. And I was a substitute. And I was watching this man, and he ran the whole show. And I was looking at it from above, because substitutes in those days didn't sit on the line, because there weren't substitutes. So we had to go and sit in the stands, and I couldn't take my eyes off him. I'm a midfield player, and his passing, his general control and his discipline, the way that he brought every player in, I've never seen one player take charge of a game like he did that particular match.
Canario. And right in the middle there, Alfredo Di Stefano, the scorer of the goal, the 26 minutes, so he keeps his fantastic record. He's played in every European Cup final, and he's scored in every one.
The best player I've ever played against, I would have to say Alfredo Di Stefano.
Alongside Cruyff and Di Stefano?
Well, I picked Michel Platini because his passing ability, where he could thread it through the eye of a needle, and he can pick out a space and he could create people with just the pass of the ball. I don't think I've ever seen anybody as good as Michel Platini. He scored goals, he made goals, he would track back in defence. Michel Platini would take it in any position. Wants the ball, yeah, let's have it. I'll see if there's anything I can do with this. And a great creator of chances for his forwards, and scored goals too.
It's almost exactly centre field. The Belgian referee putting that wall of white England jerseys back 10 yards. Shilton standing on his line, a couple of inches away from the line. The shot comes in. Oh! Platini, an absolute gem, like a rocket, corner of the net, and not even Peter Shilton, I would think, even saw it. Platini strolled up to that one. Shilton really could do nothing at all. And Platini makes it France 2, England 0, and that really was magic.
OK, so if you're going to cram in 4 midfielders to get all this talent in, who's the 4th member?
Well, another goal scorer, midfield player, but a goal scorer as well, is... I could have had him as a striker, but I put Ferenc Puskás. Ferenc Puskás, the first time anyone ever heard about him when he broke onto the world scene was when he played in Wembley. And the Hungarians, who are recognised to be a good side, from behind the Iron Curtain, we didn't know very much in those days, and they came to play at Wembley, and they beat England at Wembley. I forget the score, but I think it was about 4 or 5, and nobody had ever seen control like this, and skill like Ferenc Puskás had. You know, he rolled the ball back and embarrassed totally Billy Wright, the England captain, before slotting the ball into the back of the net.
Puskás, the Hungarian skipper. There's the outside left Sibor, right over on the right wing. Oh, a lovely goal! And that was Puskás, the inside left-hand captain, who scored that one. And my goodness, if he can turn on tricks like this, we ought to have him on the music hall. I've never seen such tremendous ball control as that exhibition of that back heel and then the quick shot.
What a skill. And for a period of time, without any question, the best player in the world. And when Pelé scored his 1,000th goal, I remember everybody made a great big fuss about 1,000 goals. You know, that somebody had scored 1,000 goals playing as a professional footballer. And I remember seeing an interview with Ferenc Puskás with some European magazine, and they asked him about Pelé's 1,000th goal. He said, well, I think I scored my 1,000th goal about 5 or 6 years ago. He was a phenomenal goal scorer and prolific goal scorer.
And certainly your 3 in the forward line, or 4 as it is, because you insist on picking 12, but let's go across this forward line now, starting with a man who really most of my generation suggests is the best that's ever played the game, Pelé.
Well, I think he was a tremendous player and naturally gifted and a colourful and a character. And in 1958, when he was a young player, he got the feeling of everybody around the world because of his performances in the semi-final and the final, when Brazil won the World Cup overseas for the first time. But he has a great left foot and a great right foot, great awareness. Another person that had this aura, you know, don't try to tackle me, I'm too good, but in a kind way. But he scored phenomenal goals.
Pelé. Baba, back to Pelé. Now what's he going to do? He's got the third! Oh, beautiful goal! Here he comes. Now this is dangerous. The ball seems tied to his feet. He's fantastic, this man. Incredible. Julinho, he's not offside. It's got the ball.
There was great debate just recently when FIFA announced their award for the player of the century. Should it be Pelé? Should it be Diego Maradona? Where did your view fall?
I didn't have either of them. I had Alfredo Di Stefano as the greatest player, but I'm a midfield player. Maybe I'm a little bit spoilt. Diego Maradona, again, is in my team, and I have to... What he had was he had this charisma, and like all the other players in my team, you didn't know what was going to happen when he got the ball. You know, he could pass it, he could thread a very intricate pass through, he would score goals. But when he came alive, when the crowd came alive, was when he got the ball and he started running with it. I've never seen one player that ever ran with the ball under control so fast. And not only that, if there was players in the way, he would be round them. And I mean, in the game where he handled the ball and it was given, the goal was given, the hand of God as they called it. But in that same match, he scored another goal, which was unbelievable.
Maradona turns like a little eel and comes away from trouble. Little squat man comes inside Butcher, leaves him for dead. Outside Fenwick leaves him for dead and puts the ball away. And that is why Maradona's the greatest player in the world. He buried the English defence. He picked up that ball 40 yards out. It's a goal of great quality by a player of the greatest quality. The first goal should never have been allowed. But Maradona has put the seal on his greatness. He's left it thumbprint on this World Cup. He scored a goal that England just couldn't cope with. They couldn't face up to. It was beyond their ability. It's England 0. Diego Maradona.
Sensational player. You know, unfortunately, he's remembered for some of the wrong things rather than the right things. I mean, what they do off the field has nothing to do with me. You've asked me to pick a team of footballers who played, and he has to be in any team. If you'd have asked me to pick a manager, then that was different, you know, because I'd have to pick someone special to handle people like him. But he's a great footballer and a great star. And someone else, you know, that glorified the South American game, and was successful, and loved the big stage. Loved the big stage, which most of these players all did.
And similar in character, I guess, to the last member of your side, one of your old teammates from the glory days of the 60s, the 68 European Cup.
Yes, George Best. I have to pick because he was again such a wonderful player and star. People loved coming because they were afraid that if they didn't come to watch him, they might miss something really special. Because he was a special player. He had great ability. He was brave. He was strong in the tackle. He was fast. But he was just such a pleasure to watch. And not only that, he would score goals and he would chase back. He was a really great player, George Best. You know, I've no qualms about saying that.
A chance here for George Best. George Best is through. He goes round Enrique. He must score. George Best must score. George Best has scored. Bobby Charlton sinks to his knees. Nobby Stiles does a cartwheel. United are in the lead again. A brilliant bit of running there by George Best, who saw the gap, went round a defender, and the red and white banners really are waving now.
12 unbelievable players. And I found it very difficult which one to leave out, but I'm not going to leave them out. I'm going to say that we'll start with 11, but there'll be changes all the time. I couldn't possibly have left any of them out. When I go home tonight, I shall probably think of, I wish I'd have mentioned him. There'll be somebody I'll have forgotten. But my substitutes are Schmeichel, goalkeeper, John Charles, defence, Marco van Basten as a striker, Garrincha from Brazil on the right side, Eusebio midfield and striker, and Dennis Law striker.
Strong talents, strong temperaments. Who would be the captain?
Any one of them. Any one of them could have been captain and probably was captain of their particular teams. I would think Di Stefano in his position in central midfield. I think, and he had the mobility to get around everywhere.
And in this fantasy world, if we had to have a coach as well, you played under Sir Matt Busby, you're working here alongside Sir Alex Ferguson, would they be qualified for the job?
Well, yes, but to be honest, it doesn't take much. It wouldn't take much coaching with this lot, really. I think you just have to pick the team, wouldn't you? There's some great managers. Alf Ramsey was a great manager for England, and got the best out of his players. If Alf Ramsey could get the best out of these players, well, that's impossible to think that anybody could ever beat them. Matt Busby was great in his own way, different sort of character. Alex Ferguson, at club level, unbeatable, really. Any coach worth his salt would not need any help with that team.
Sir Bobby Charlton, recorded at Old Trafford earlier in the year. And to recap now, here's how his selections line up. In goal, it's his former England teammate, known as the Banks of England, Gordon Banks. 4 men across the back, the former Brazil captain Carlos Alberto. Then the only man to have lifted the World Cup for England, Bobby Moore. Germany's Franz Beckenbauer, a World Cup winner as captain and as coach. And at left fullback, Duncan Edwards, who lost his life so tragically in the Munich air crash of 1958. So Bobby also plays 4 across the middle. The Dutch master Johan Cruyff on the right, Hungary's rotund left-footed genius Ferenc Puskás on the left, and in the centre Michel Platini of France, and the man Sir Bobby rates as the best player ever, Alfredo Di Stefano, the maestro of that unbeatable Real Madrid side of the 50s and 60s. Then up front, 3 players to be used in rotation. George Best, who played alongside Sir Bobby in Manchester United's European Cup winning team of 1968, Diego Maradona, Argentina's tortured genius, and Pelé, 3 times a World Cup hero with Brazil.